mentality. You
Yeah.
forget that it's a transaction. People are still getting something for their money, even though it feels like they're just giving. They're not. They're getting something back, and that's
Yeah.
an emotional attachment or something to do with the way it makes them feel. Sometimes when you allow a little bit of your human side to come through, people connect. I think it's powerful to be part of a community because people want to buy from people who are like them.
Yeah.
And I think when you see this other side and somebody puts the lights on, it's mind-blowing. And it took me a little while to get over feeling guilty that I hadn't discovered it earlier in my life.
So, hello everyone. We've got Joanne Saint here, goes by the name of Jo, and really excited to have you on for a number of reasons. One, because you're into the property world, but also because you're mostly in the marketing world, and you've got 20 years experience in that world, which is absolutely insane. So there's a lot of value that you can give there. So welcome on.
Thank you very much, Johnny. Good to be here.
Good. So 20 years experience in any industry or profession is a lot. You can consider yourself as an expert, I guess, after 20 years. So how did that journey start?
So when I was 17 and I was doing my A-levels at college, I decided it just wasn't for me. I was bored and it felt like school, so I just went straight into work. So I started working financial services and they just gave me a chance in the marketing department, and I ended up doing my CIM qualifications on a night after work. So at the age of 20, I had 3 years of work experience and my professional marketing qualification. So I've never been to university. So I kind of fell into it just because I was looking for an alternative to being in full-time education. But I was still fully qualified, great marketing team, a really good grounding in the basics of marketing, of the foundations.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I hear quite a lot from a lot of people that are doing really well for themselves. They didn't go to university, they left school because a lot of people that what's the word, strong-minded, they sometimes don't get on too well at school. And I think marketing is one of them things, with a lot of other things, that practical work can be better than stuff that you taught, especially for 3 years. If you spent that within a company where they're willing to teach you and you're learning like hands-on rather than through a textbook, I think you're going to develop yourself a lot quicker.
I think it's that combination, isn't it? So the Chartered Institute of Marketing is very theory-based. It's quite heavy. It's quite textbook. It's the psychology of marketing, which is great. But then to combine that with on-the-job, day-to-day experiences is kind of what the combination is, really. And you don't get that at university.
Yeah. No, I agree. So right now you've got your own company, Attention Marketing. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing. So what have you been through to get there?
So I'm cracking on now. I'm getting to be a bit old.
With the work or with life?
In my age, in my life, yeah. I'm getting on a bit. So I turned 40 a little while ago, almost 2 years ago now, and kind of had this.
The camera must be taking off 10 years.
Had this epiphany that there's got to be more than this. I just never felt like I reached my potential. So I'd been in marketing for 20 years, corporate job after corporate job, some very big companies, some very small companies, mainly B2B, actually, mainly in the business to business space.
One of them was the air ambulance.
I spent 10 months there last year.
That's
more
awesome.
of a consultancy basis, but that was amazing. Charity is just a completely different ball game.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Dealing with different ways of working, or how's it different?
Mentality. You forget that it's a transaction. People are still getting something for their money, even though it feels like they're just giving. They're not. They're getting something back, and that's an emotional attachment or something to do with the way it makes them feel. So I think charity would benefit, a lot of charities, by feeling a little bit more commercial and a little bit more transactional without losing who they are, the spirit of who they are. So I picked up a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Not long after my 40th, left my job. My husband has a really good corporate career. We've got 2 young children, and he was working abroad in Europe, and it was just getting to the point where neither of us were ever home, and it was having a really negative impact on family life. Our children, like, dad was away all week, mum was out all day, because that's what you do when you go to work. You've got the commute and everything else. So it was just too much, and I just thought, it's got to be more than this. I didn't want to stop work, and I knew that being a stay-at-home mum was not where I needed to be.
Crazy.
We'll try this entrepreneur life and see how that goes. And to be honest, I've really struggled with it. It's taken me 2 years to get my head around it. But
Right.
I've read so much. So I've been on a massive personal development journey over 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Rich Dad Poor Dad led to The Richest Man in Babylon, The Science of Getting Rich, Napoleon Hill, some amazing content. And it was like somebody took the bag off my head.
Really?
It's like a matrix moment, I think, isn't it? So if you've always been entrepreneurial and you've never worked in corporate and you've never had that, get a good job, get an education, get a mortgage, hope to have a little bit squirreled away for retirement, and then you die, that's life that the majority of people live.
Yeah.
And I think when you see this other side and somebody puts the lights on, it's mind-blowing. And it took me a little while to get over feeling guilty that I hadn't discovered it earlier in my life.
Do you think it's a more modern thing where people are going down this entrepreneurial journey and learning more about not what they can do for themselves, but I feel like it was maybe just like, you know, you come out of school, typically come out of school, get a job. I mean, I don't know how long ago we're talking now, maybe like 50 years, and you just stay in that company until you retire and then you die. Do you think it's more modern that this is coming into more people's lives?
Yes, but the education system doesn't support that. So the education system today, I mean, my children are still both in junior school, in primary school.
Yeah.
The education system today is still equipped for what was the Industrial Revolution, which was to educate children. Brighter children were singled out to become doctors and lawyers. Not so bright children were singled out to work in factories. There was no in between.
Yeah.
Now, the jobs that are being created today didn't exist 10 years ago. The jobs that my children will have available to them when they leave school, nobody's even invented them yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So the discord between education and the world of work, like people don't even know how to be entrepreneurial, or the fact that there are different jobs available. They're not keeping up with technology. I think they do the best job they can. I think teachers are a very passionate bunch of people. I love them. I support our school, but I think the system isn't working.
No, I do agree. It's right that you say that it's an old system that worked back then. I think that there's schools that are trying to introduce as much as they can, but it's nothing in terms of what you can. It gives you the tools almost almost gives you enough to go and do it. I mean, when I was in school, they had e-commerce, had extra curriculum, and they try to help out there, but they don't teach you the actual skills, like how to do your accounts, how to buy a house, all that sort of stuff, which I think that they should definitely include.
Financial education is massive. Budgeting, looking after a house. It sounds old-fashioned and traditional, but it feels like there's a couple of generations where that kind of skill set has been missed. It's been skipped, and it's
that's only going to lead to problems as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's with everything that's going on at the moment, stuff like mental health is coming more to light as well, and a lot of that stems from people in school, people getting bullied, or people not understanding, you know, how to deal with certain interactions. And although school does teach you in a way, it doesn't teach you that doesn't teach you about that. So I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and he said if they had like a mindset or a meditation, or maybe not meditation in school, that might not be great, but something like that in a school could be really, really useful.
Absolutely, and I think school needs to be completely designed from scratch, and mindfulness for me is a crucial element, teaching people to understand who they are and how to get through the world, and to understand those emotions and that they will go through, and how to take ownership for themselves. You know, that's a big thing about personal development. It's the idea that you are 100% responsible, not just for your results and what you do in life, but also the way you feel and the way you react. And I genuinely think we've got an opportunity to really develop a generation of people who are much more mindful, much more in control of themselves. And I think it starts at school. So absolutely mindfulness.
So you said the last 2 years have obviously been difficult, as it is with, you know, anyone starting a company, and mindset does have a huge part to play in that. Now it's great that you've read up, so you've sort of, like say, you've taken the bag off your head. How did you cope with that from the start? Was it a big decision for you?
It was. I can be a little bit impulsive, so it was like, do you know what, she's on one, she'll go back to work. She'll get another job, she'll go back to work. And then the more I started to read, the more I realized I couldn't go back. I couldn't put myself back into that rat race. I think the difficulty with being self-employed was Not that I couldn't sell myself or I didn't feel like I had something to offer. It was kind of packaging it up into a proposition, almost sort of,
Right.
how do I turn that into something that can be monetized? How do
Sure.
I turn my ability to have a conversation about marketing, or to help
Yeah.
a business understand how they could use marketing better? What even is that? Is it coaching? Is it consultancy? Am I a social media manager? It was very difficult to sort of pin that down into what it was.
Yeah.
And money mindset is a very big thing, like understanding what you're worth. I always found it very easy to take my paycheck, fight for a pay rise, get a promotion. But when you're doing it for yourself and you're talking one-on-one with the person whose money it is, it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the, I guess, advantages that you had was that you did have up to then, 18 years experience in marketing.
Yeah.
So you had the skills. Obviously, starting a business and running a business is a whole new skill set within itself.
Yeah.
Have you got help to start with the business side?
Mainly from networking groups, and I think, you know, I'm quoting now, and it's all cliche and we've heard it all before, but your net worth is your network. And then when you start to, I had not really mixed with entrepreneurs before, people who ran their own businesses, who understood, and it can be a very lonely place. So I'm part of a couple of really good memberships where I get continual support, and also networking groups. And I've got a really good accountant. She's incredibly helpful and supportive. I think having a group of people around you who understand the difficulty of running a business is massively helpful. I don't think anyone can do it on their own.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's when I started my first business, where you just do as much as you can, but you might be doing things in the wrong way or that aren't leading you down the right direction. We ended up getting a coach, and that was really, really useful, because they've been through it themselves. They've seen many businesses do it, so they can almost guide you in the right direction. At the end of the day, it's going to be down to you whether or not your business succeeds. But they can really put you on the right sort of path. So yeah, amazing. And I mean, 20 years is a long time, like I said, to be in an industry. How has marketing methods changed? Because we've got some pretty cool technology now. I can imagine that since maybe 20 years ago, it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't even think there was Facebook. No, there wasn't 20 years ago. There wasn't. There was no such thing as digital marketing. Was not even
without Facebook.
Very strange world. We didn't know what everyone else was having for tea. I mean, I don't know how you survive in life without that information.
Well, that's what I say to my friends, is that you never really go on a run or do exercise unless you put it on Instagram.
No, it doesn't happen. It's not real. So it was very strange. I mean, I worked in a building society, a local building society. So the tactics that you used were different, and there was still an awful lot of radio and press advertising. Printed materials were huge. You know, you had a brochure for everything. Print and design was massive. Events were big. You know, store openings and launches, and direct mail, I suppose. So it was. But the principles of marketing have never changed. All that's changed is the mechanism that allows you to talk to your audience. And now the businesses benefit from the fact that is so much faster and so much more targeted. So when I started in marketing, the idea of identifying a target audience, yes, you could identify a target audience, but you couldn't directly get at them. You know, you could take out a radio ad or a press ad, but there was a huge amount of wastage. So most of the people who you'd paid to put your message in front of were not your audience. They were irrelevant. Whereas today you can channel your budget absolutely almost to the front door of the people, certainly to the device in the palm of their hand, of exactly who your audience is. So it's just got faster and smarter and cheaper in a lot of respects. You know, cheaper, as most things do as they develop. I think the fact that you're cutting out wastage means that your per head budget to attract people is much less.
It's almost a bit scary how targeted you can be. You know, you can probably say there's, I mean, the Facebook targeting, that's obviously very, very targeted. And the other thing, I was speaking with a friend the other day, and he said, I didn't realize this, but when you're on a website and you might go on somebody else's website and look for a product or a service, they then know that you've been on the website. So when you go on another website, I think it's through Google, that they can advertise their stuff. So they're sort of getting back into your mind.
So the thing I say to people is, if you're scrolling through Facebook or you're looking at websites and adverts pop up, and it's an advert that you might not necessarily want anybody else to know that you're looking for, it's not an accident. Google knows that you're looking for that product, doesn't matter what the product is. And I think for me, some people are really fearful of the big brother element of things like cookies and pixels, and it's cookies and pixels that drive that knowledge. And it absolutely is giving power to the businesses and the advertisers to put that product in front of you. Some brands are brilliant at it. So not on a high street and Marks and Spencer's, right down to product level. So if I've been on Marks and Spencer's looking at a pair of shoes, for several days, that advert will follow me, and it's saying,
Yeah.
We know you want these shoes. Like, what
buy
are you waiting
it,
for?
buy it.
Get your credit card out. And that's genius. And a lot of people feel like they don't like it because they feel like it's intrusive. But if you think about it, it's better that I only see adverts for things that I might be interested in.
Yeah.
So I'm not into physical fitness. I'm a lazy cow. So going to the gym is out. Yeah, mental fitness. So I'm never gonna do the 3 peaks or anything like that. So Peloton will be no good advertising to me. I mean, I might fall into their target audience, but I'm never going to search for their product. And it's about, I'm never going to go fishing. So I'm never going to be shown adverts that are related to that content. It's a waste of their budget and it's a waste of my time. So I actually think it's a really positive thing. And I can see why some people feel it's intrusive. I think it helps the advertisers and the marketers reach their audience, and it helps the audience only be shown products that they might be interested in. I think it's an absolute win-win.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And so the people that are probably listening to this are going to be people that invest in property, solicitors, estate agents, and that's a really, really saturated market for some, and it can be a really busy market depending on where you are. So I mean, in Darlington you've got a few estate agents, you've got a few solicitors, and I think it's more now as important as ever to have an online presence and also be using marketing methods that perhaps other people can't or don't use, because solicitors especially, they're quite an old school group of people. There's obviously some new up and coming ones, and the ones that are going to be sort of pushing through, especially in this period, are the ones that are adapting to the marketing and the things that we like to do as consumers. But how do you get ahead of competition using marketing?
For me, there's only 2 ways. 1 is authenticity and 2 is give value. And that's what your audience are looking for now. For me, marketing is not about selling anymore. It's about building relationships. People don't want to be sold to anymore. If you imagine, probably you and a lot of your listeners are too young but buying a used car, you were sold to, and there were techniques. Even buying a house, there were techniques. It was very scientific, a little bit NLP, I suppose, in the way that process happened. But now nobody is sold anything. People do their own research before they go out to buy. They know before they walk into a showroom the spec they want, the colour they want, how old they want it to be. The price of that product should be and what they're willing to pay. Nobody is sold to, and I think that's true of every product. People have got enough information at their fingertips to do the research. So the point is to get them at research phase. So if you imagine the classic marketing or sales funnel, it's no good you only appearing at the tip of that funnel when people are ready to buy, because your competitors have been guiding them down that funnel by giving them advice and information at each stage. So when I talk to individual private property investors who are basically filling in the gaps between estate agents because they're trying to go direct to vendor, they're almost trying to bypass the estate agency model. They're basically filling in the gaps where estate agents can be very traditional in that they're selling a commodity, they're putting a product in front of a wide audience. But what a personal investor can and should do is build relationships and really get under the skin of the problem that vendor is feeling, and be attached to that problem and find the solutions to fix it. And there are many property investing strategies that can fix that, that traditionally solicitors and estate agents kind of stay away from. But I think there's a marketplace for the traditional businesses in this whole property industry. And again, it's to give value. So if you imagine an estate agent completely breaking the mold and being entirely disruptive and actually interviewing their potential buyers, a bit like Phil and Kirsty do on location. What is it that you really want? What are the barriers that are going to stop you from buying? And really work hard and go the extra mile to find the specific properties, not just send them every 3-bed semi within a 25-mile radius. That's not what property is about anymore. And it doesn't matter what's on people's tick lists, it is still an emotional thing. You walk into a property that ticks every box on the list. If you're not feeling it, you're not buying it. So for me, I think it's about understanding that it is an emotional purchase the majority of the time. You shouldn't be emotionally attached to it as an investor. You should absolutely still see it as a business. But it's by giving value. So estate agents could do free ebooks around the top 20 things you can do to sell your house more easily. Have you considered having your gutters cleaned or replacing your drains on the outside? Get some plants and almost budget and give a checklist for people preparing your house for sale. And for me, it's about putting out content like that. So how at the moment you choose to sell your house is you phone 3 estate agents, you get them all round, you give them a price, you probably go for the middle one in terms of what they say your house is worth and what they're going to charge you in fees. And I just think that if you are thinking of selling or buying or leasing or renting, and there was an agent that was going above and beyond the others to give value and good quality content, you don't need to go through the process of getting 3 quotes.
Yeah, that's true. And it's about, I think, I can't remember what the book was called now, but it was about building trust with your audience. And it's basically saying that it's the better that you build trust with your audience, the more trust and confidence they have in you. So one, it reduces the time that you need to sell. It reduces the need to have to sell too much. Because if you have the trust of the customer, then it's like your favorite brands in a store. Just thinking of Hovis for some reason for bread. If I go into a store, whenever I do get bread, I just know Hovis. So, you know, it's a really easy decision for me. And it's the same with companies, and they can really utilize that and get in front of the customers, like I said, as much as possible. And it's been about consistent with their message as well along the way. And I think one thing with estate agents and solicitors as well is that the transactional, the amount of times that someone comes back could be maybe 6 years. So for them, it's so important to grab and hold that customer as well, which I think estate agents are starting to do it now. They're starting to realise the value of holding on to that customer.
Lifetime value, yes.
Yeah, and what they can do in terms of referring them to like their friends and family. But the solicitors that I've worked with, I've never seen them trying to hold on to their customers after they complete. Obviously, there's a few bits they need to do once they do complete the move. But after that, there's nothing they really do. So I think that could be really important for a solicitor.
And customer relationship is massive, because it's not even about that customer. It's about the fact that that customer has family and friends and networking groups. How many times have you been in a property Facebook group and somebody asks, does anybody know a good solicitor who can get this moving on? Time and time and time and time again. And every person that you speak to has got dozens of horror stories. The solicitor left early, we didn't complete in time because they finished the office at 4. They're not available outside of office hours. They feel that they're in a very rigid structure that isn't often fluid enough to get the job done. And sometimes the job is up against a tight deadline. It's a very stressful situation. And I know there's a lot of people who feel that way, rightly or wrongly. And I just think that it's not difficult right now for somebody to rise above the pack and be better. And that's all about content and value. But retention and customer relationship marketing is massive, because people are always asking for personal recommendations, and a personal recommendation carries so much more weight than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you do any marketing to capture a person, whether they bought from you or not, you should see that as almost you've plucked them out of the ocean and you've put them in your little nursing pool. So whether they're buying or not, just keep them in there and keep them happy. You've done the effort. You've done the effort for them to know who you are, your brand. You've got over know. You've just got to achieve like and trust. No like and trust. Then you don't sell. You're not selling. You've already done it. The sell's in the bag.
Yeah. And like you said, there's no stronger way to get business than for a referral from somebody. You know, if you and I are best friends and I said, I'm looking for a solicitor, and you recommend a firm down the road, I'm automatically, because you've had that experience, and if you said they're good, I'm automatically going to think, oh, she's had a great experience with them. I don't know if I can trust any other company. I know that they're going to do me a good job, hopefully. And obviously there's other parts to do with their service and making sure they're consistent with that as well. But what sort of practical ways are there to stay in touch or to maintain the attention of a customer after they've moved home or before?
So I think these days mailing list is king, and people talk about it, the email list. But when was the last time you actually unsubscribed from an email funnel that you were in? It's a very rare thing to do. Like, most people are fairly apathetic. So I think that having an email list is strong, and almost just having regular content that goes out to people, like I say, that gives them value and that gets across who you are as a brand and your authenticity. I think having a strong social media presence and making your audience feel like part of your family and your business. Why shouldn't a solicitor have a really strong interactive Facebook page where it's topical, and they're talking about the fact that they've just had their 7-year anniversary, or the boss has brought his dog into the office? It's all that personal stuff that makes you feel like you've got a relationship. And it's like all social media, probably a lot of it, if you dig deep, is fairly fake. Like, we've all got friends on Facebook that are not friends. We're not friends with them. We've never got the pub with those people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The psychology is still the same. You are building a relationship with those people, and so that it's almost, you're almost putting them into your swim lane, so that when it comes for that person to need that product or service again, they simply are not looking anywhere else, because they've got a relationship with you. I just think it's regular good value content.
Yeah, it's a weird one. You know, you have people on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. You might not have ever met them before, but where they're posting all the time, I mean, it could just be somebody that's one of your friends, not an actual friend, but just somebody that's on there, not promoting a business or anything. And where you see them so much, you think that you know them really well, so you end up sending them a message like your best mates, and you're like, oh crap, I don't actually know you that well.
Person, it's a bit awkward. Like, I don't actually know you, but people feel that way about celebrities, about influencers, about certain brands. You know, people are really passionate about certain brands. You've got Apple versus Microsoft, McDonald's versus Burger King, and that's the point. You want people to feel something about your brand, possibly not to the level of your Apple diehard fans, but certainly so that if anybody's asking, do you know of a solicitor that can, they're the first name that's going to come to your head, and you're not even thinking about it. You don't even realize you're promoting them as a brand. You just feel like you've got a relationship with them.
So I think that one thing with solicitors, obviously it's a profession that they go through a lot of years to be able to do what they do. So naturally, I think that they need to try and portray professionalism. But obviously we both know that content is mostly about being authentic and being yourself, because it can really show through in whatever you're doing. How do you, can you still show that professionalism but show your true self, or what can, because I know that people do a lot of videos and stuff, and if you're proper, and it still does come across quite well. But what can they do to be more authentic or show?
There are lines and barriers that you've got to stay within. So I'm not suggesting that a solicitor should start posting, the picture of their lunch or anything like that. But I just feel like sometimes when you allow a little bit of your human side to come through, people connect. People connect with that more easily. And so there are ways that you can do that. So I teach my clients to almost have a content pie chart. So you think about 4 or 5 messages that you continually want to get across. So one might be that you're a solicitor that focuses on a certain type of law. The other might be that you focus within a certain geographic location. It might be how long your firm's been established. And then the other one might be personal content. So it might be, you might do a profile of each of the partners in the firm, or you might do a profile of how long your receptionist has been there, and almost just allowing people to see the inside. And then you give a percentage score to each of those. So it might be the type of law that you practice and your skills, experience and qualifications in that is your number one message to get out. So you might apportion that 50% of your content pie chart, and then you might split the others up. So actually you only end up with 10% of the personal content. So it's not about every post being, who Jim is and what Jim does on a weekend and what Jim's favorite curry is. It's not that. It's just a little bit, and it's about having a mix of content so you don't become boring and you don't run out of things to say. So what that pie chart does is it means, so every 1 in 10 posts, you might think, right, I'm going to put out something that's a little bit personal, either about me or the firm, but 5 in 10 posts are very much going to be professional and credible, and it's just about making sure that balance is right and not one is not overdone over the other. That's
some really good advice. I really like that. And one thing that I think it's Gary V, do you know Gary V? He says it's like basically use your area as well. So for example, I'm in Brentwood, and if I was a solicitor or a estate agent, I'd be posting about local news, what's going on. I think he said like comment about the potholes in the road, something just to sort of bring them into the same sort of headspace as you. And I think that's really key for, solicitors and estate agents normally are quite local. Obviously there's larger national firms and it's a bit more difficult for them. But getting inside of the industry is really, really, really good.
I think it's powerful to be part of your community, because people want to buy from people who are like them. People always want to see that mirror in somebody else. And I think that, yes, being part of the community and contributing to the local community news and stories and having an opinion, albeit with some care. You don't want to wade into one side or the other of a political debate or anything like that. But absolutely, I think it's important, even in Facebook advertising. So I've seen Facebook ads that are very targeted to one area, and the area is mentioned like 3 different times in the ad because it's so important that people see, that's local, that's meant for me, that's me, and that's my neck of the woods, that's my part of the UK.
Don't dominate your market. And I think that's for property investors, that's really important as well. We both know Paul Million, and when you think of Paul, you think of Mr. Darlington, don't you?
Paul has got the area sewn up, so I love his group, The Property Group. It's amazing. Him and Anthony Boyce give out so much good value content. Love Paul to bits. But there are a lot of investors coming to Darlington and focusing on Darlington. There are an awful lot of people outside of our area, and you know what? That's okay. I have an abundance mindset, so I believe that not that there's no such thing as competition, but it's horses for courses.
There's enough business out there for everyone.
There's more than enough to go around, and people will buy from the people that they are aligned with. I love exclusion in marketing. I love self-exclusion. Don't be vanilla. I'm not for everybody. My style doesn't suit everybody, and that's okay, because we've never worked together.
Yeah.
So the other marketers or the social media managers, they can have people that align with them, and if they don't align with me, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let people almost be so much yourself, so authentically and unapologetically yourself, that people self-exclude. That's not my person. Great, that's okay. Move on to the next one.
And you're working literally to your specific target, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's the saying? Is it try and please everyone and you please none, or something
Absolutely.
like that? It's the same with that. So you just spoke about the property thing, which is an awesome networking group, and it's funny. It's one of the more relaxed ones, and that's why I really do enjoy going there, because you can just go there. There's no sort of you haven't got to pretend to be someone. You can just be yourself. You can go have a chat with any single person in that room. They're all happy to talk, and it's a good laugh, because he talks about the circle. Was it the circle of death?
The creeping circle
the creeping
of death.
circle. That's the one when you have to talk about yourself. And I think that's a really, really good way to sort of do networking, because it just relaxes you a little bit and allows your inner authenticity, which we was just talking about, to come out. So networking as a whole, what's your thoughts on networking? Do you do a lot of it?
I do, and I love it. And I know some people hate it, but I absolutely love meeting new people. I just think it's finding out people's stories, and I just think it's the fastest way to learn. So me and my husband haven't been in property investing very long. We're still in the middle of our first project. We're being guided through that by an awesome project manager, Sarah McDermott. So she has a business, Maison Parfait. She's based in Harrogate. She's done some amazing projects, and so I'm shadowing her, and we're learning. It's a back to bricks. It's a fairly intense project, and I just think we would never have met her if it hadn't been for networking and events. And I just think that it's crucial to do things like build up your power team. So your power trades team, you want your investors in the room who've used those people, who know that plasterer is going to turn up on time, who know that the electrician's going to come in when he says he's going to come in. And I just think networking is crucial for that, as well as. So Paul is just a legend, and if you ever have him on the podcast, you will need 6 hours.
Yeah, I know.
The idea that people are really happy to give out knowledge and information for free. So I've never tried that strategy. Could you guide me on some of the things that you've done about it? So that for me, that's the power of networking. Yeah.
And I mean, it goes back to that point of having a strong group around you, like you just said. I mean, without the lady that was helping on your projects, it would be a lot more difficult,
It would be terrifying. It would be something we've uncovered. If we hadn't had her, we would be like, let's just walk away. We can't do this, It's terrifying.
And it's the same thing with companies as well. You want somebody that you can trust, that it's exactly the same. You want somebody that will sort of walk you through it, not give you all the legal jargon, which is, there's a lot of it, especially with solicitors and estate agents. They can really sort of confuse you because it is quite confusing. I mean, I think they make it confusing, but it's the same with marketing as well. I think you spoke earlier about it being so complicated, or people making it complicated, whereas what you do is you just simplify it.
It's just a conversation. It's just a conversation between you and somebody who you think will benefit from your product or service. That's all marketing is. We've used a solicitor recently, a local solicitor, and she said, and I thought this was amazing, your solicitor's job is to make it so that you can understand what's happening. And I just thought that was brilliant. What a brilliant approach. She felt like her job was to make sure we understood what was happening, what we needed to do, and what other people needed to do. And she was prepared to do whatever was necessary so that process was understandable to us and we could follow it. And I just thought, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know, but there's the moving times at the moment, I think on average are about 16 weeks from agreeing to sell, which is just crazy. And a lot of that, I've spoken to a few people about it, is they say that people that are moving house, they just don't know what's going on. So, and I mean, people within the sort of that area do like to try and point the blame if anything does go wrong, like solicitors and estate agents. But you've got the client who's the person that we all need to think about. They're the person who's moving and making it from the offer to completion. And if they don't know what they're doing or they haven't been told, they could go around calling the estate agent solicitor, get everybody wound up. Things could get miscommunicated, and I think that's why things go wrong. And it's really interesting that you say that about the solicitor and her job to make you happy, because I know that sort of builds a bond with you as well. And I can imagine that if you move house again, then she's definitely going to be up there at the top of the list.
And when we're in networking groups or when we're online in property groups and somebody asks for a solicitor, that's whose name we give, because we feel like she understands it. And it's the same with accountants. Like, people are always asking for accountants that understand the property industry, because it is quite different. So there are a whole range of professional services, me included, where I feel like property is just a great niche to be in. So I could put myself as a marketer to serve any industry, but then nobody sees it. I just become wallpaper. But the minute I say I'm a marketing professional and I specialise in supporting people in the property industry, people stop and take notice. And it's the exact same for solicitors, accountants, commercial mortgage brokers. If they themselves understand the process of investing in property, I just feel like you feel more that they'll be the right person.
Yeah, well, it's confidence, isn't it? They'll be more confident in you as a person. So what's on the agenda for you? Where do you see your property career going?
I think ultimately, because like I said, David's very corporate, and his business partner has a consultancy as well. They both have young families, away from home a lot. So initially, property was just an exit strategy for them, ultimately. So it's a very long-term strategy for us. It's not about cash flowing and replacing income today. It's about building some assets that in the future will mean those guys can leave those jobs and be more at home with their families, enjoy more freedom, not exchanging time for money anymore. So it's very much long term. We're not sort of we're not flipping, we're not doing rent to rent strategies. It's about growing a portfolio of assets. So that's kind of the focus at the moment. My role in that is, because they're both so busy, they have no time. My role is marketing and project management. So whilst we're being guided through project management, I'm documenting the journey. Seeing with so many other property investors and developers, the best and easiest way to fund those projects is with private investor finance, and marketing and social media is the absolute best way to do that. You set yourselves up as a credible place for people to invest their money with, that you will give them a strong return within a fixed period of time, and their money's safe. That's a brilliant place for an investor to be.
And I mean, like, if you are looking for an investor, it's going to be a lot more difficult if you're not putting yourself out there, showing what you're about and who you are, rather than somebody who is doing that. Ash Anderson, I've seen that he's massively been out on it at the moment. I think that he's got an investor on board, which I can only assume is because he's been able to put himself out there, and he's done really well in articulating who he is and what he's looking to do.
And that's what's so frustrating. So you'll have somebody who's been in bricks and mortar for 15 or 20 years, and they can't get an investor, and they'll see these young upstarts coming through, boasting on social media, I've got 400k of private investment in 6 months, and they've probably maybe done one property. And that's the power of marketing and personal brand. That's the difference. If people don't know who you are, what you've got to offer, and why they should have a business relationship with you, they're never going to have one, which is why you've absolutely got to be marketing.
So where do you see the marketing industry going? Because we're as connected right now as we have ever been. I've been connected to you through social media. I mean, we met at the property thing as well, but I wouldn't have even, I moved up north very short for a little time, and that was only because I met somebody through social media, and then that sort of, I went through that little journey. Are we going to be able to be more connected?
I think so. I don't think anything will ever replace personal connection. I think that it's about, and this is why brands and businesses need to focus more on value and giving value, and how they're solving the problems of their audiences and not selling. So anybody that's still doing traditional marketing and selling will lose their audience. Anybody who's not marketing will not survive. So I have always believed that marketing and sales are the single most functions of any business. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If you're in manufacturing, you've got the best product. So let's take, quite often, brands that are second, third or fourth to the market win the market share, not because they are better. Product number 1, 2 or 3 was probably better, but they just marketed better. It's why selling on Amazon works. I've never tried it, but the philosophy is anybody can buy a white box product. The minute you start to put that in a coloured box and put a brand on it and give that brand some values and associations and attachment, that product becomes significantly more valuable than that product, and it has a greater audience. So marketing is crucial. And what I've found is so many businesses, particularly traditional businesses, aren't doing it. They're afraid of it. They feel like it's too complicated. It'll take too much time. But for me, it's absolutely crucial.
I used to work at an online estate agency when I started my career out in the property industry, and the company was super fast growing, had a really great family feel to it, and it was the number 1 online estate agent. And then Purple Bricks was sort of just below number 2, and I think we had a few meetings about it. You know, we had total company meetings, and we would say they're spending like £1 million a month on marketing. What they're doing, they're just going to run out of cash. They didn't run out of cash, and now, you know, you see where they are, and it's exactly what you just said. It's incredible. So
but if you think about pen, so I write an article for a magazine, for a property magazine, and I've just written it, and I'm going to give you, it hasn't even been published yet, but one of the paragraphs I put in that is if you think about a pen. So if you think about a pen, you've got Mont Blanc, Smiggle and Bic. They all leave a trail of ink on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And when the person reads that piece of paper, they don't know which of those brands created that trail of ink. Yet people are still prepared to pay thousands times more for the next product up. And that's all to do with brand and the association and the emotion and the personal attachment that people have from that brand and what they need in their life. What they need is not to create a trail of ink on a piece of paper, otherwise everyone would just buy a Bic. They need something more than that, some kind of fulfillment, some kind of...
How it makes you feel.
Exactly. Now, none of those products are wrong. I'm not saying everybody should buy Bic or Smiggle or Mont Blanc. What I'm saying is those products need to know who their audience is, what problem they specifically solve. Bic should never try and compete with Mont Blanc, and similarly the other way around. They have a completely different audience, and that's okay. There's room for all of them, but they all do the same job, and that's what brand is. That's all that brand is.
Yeah, it's the same with McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's don't ever claim to have the best burgers, do they? But they're so consistent with what they do. You know,
I've just written that paragraph. I've literally
did you?
Paragraph, and they don't claim to. They know that they don't have the best burger in the world, and so does everybody else. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you've been out on a few beers, if there's one open, you're buying one. That's the point. For them, it's about location. So McDonald's is actually a real estate business.
Yeah.
It's not a burger business. It's a real estate business. Where they are located is crucial to the success of their product. They are located where there are hungry people. That's it.
Yeah, there's been absolute queues down. There's one on a bit of a busy road down, and there's just queues going for so long. It's so funny. Yeah. So do you want to give that magazine a bit of a shout out?
So it's Blue Bricks magazine, and it's very new to the market, but it's very much about sort of what I've been talking about, just giving investors, whether they're seasoned investors or brand new investors, a place to go with some collective knowledge. So they've got various different contributors writing different articles about different things, and it's just a really nice way for people to read up on what's happening in our industry. Just value add. It's just a nice way.
From what I've seen already, it looks like there's a great community of people in it. You know, it's almost as if they're just doing it to do it and to get together. You know, and the people that are in it, there's some really good content in there as well. I mean, I haven't read it, but I can see the sort of people that are in it. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, I think the people in property part is one of the nicest features, just focusing on different people and their journeys, because it's such a diverse industry. So is somebody focusing on SA, or are they doing traditional buy to lets? You know, in Darlington you can buy a house for 25 grand, and
crazy.
It is crazy. It's the idea of the diversity of our industry, I think that's what the magazine captures quite well, that it's very different.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast, was because estate agents did have a bit of a bad name for themselves, and the property industry as a whole, I think, has, you know, it's tarnished with that a little bit. But there's some amazing people that are really, really courageous. You know, they've done some amazing things where we were and where we've come to with technology. You know, growing these huge businesses, I don't think that they get the recognition that they deserve. And property developers as well. I mean, the minds, you know, it's so mentally tough to go through that, and you know, you're buying a house at the end of the day, it's huge, and people do that a lot. So I can imagine that makes them be really good.
And I think as well, they are business people, property investors, developers, anybody in the industry are people, and also most of them are good people, and they're doing it for the right reasons, which is actually to give people, at the end of the day, to give people a nice quality home to live in. There's not very much more important than that. And you've got deal packages and sources, and yes, some of them have a bad name, and you've got people doing rent to rent, and yes, some of them have a bad name, people doing HMOs, and yes, some of them have a bad name, but I genuinely believe that's the minority. Most of the people in our business genuinely want to give people a nice place to call home, and there's nothing more important than that. And similarly, when you're looking for vendors and you're doing things like below market value deals, that can feel a little bit like you're a snake, but you might not be. You might be that vendor's bloody lifeline. They're desperate to get out of a situation, and as long as you're working with them and it's fair and everybody wins, always look for the win-win. You're always doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's true. So Jo, you're a bit of a superwoman, because you're doing this in property. You've got your own company, which you started just 2 years ago, and you've got kids. How do you manage all of that?
I think it's So I've just read The Compound Effect, and I think it is very much just about reworking your life and how it operates. So we didn't ever really watch a lot of TV. I've never sort of been addicted to the soaps or anything like that. But I think it is just about acknowledging that you are in control.
Yeah.
A strong why is crucial. You know, a vision board. I want new boobs and new teeth.
Nice.
That's my focus for the next year.
Awesome. Well, just a quick one. Do you think that you should get your goals out there, or do you think you should keep them quite close? I mean, you've gone out there. You're going to no coming back.
I think it gives accountability. I think if you put yourself on a bit of a shelf and say, I'm going to do this, you've kind of got to then see it through. It just gives an extra reason to push through. It's not easy. There are times when, you know, the kids just want me to go out on the trampoline, or Mum, can we just go on a bike ride? Or, you know, we've both had a busy day and it's like, well, there's a new movie come on, and it's so easy, and you absolutely should give yourself downtime. But I used to live that life where I was coming from the office, we'd have some tea, and then I'd just sit on the sofa and I'd just absorb whatever was on the screen in front of me, and that's fine. I'm not knocking anybody, but what I'm saying is we've all got time. I mean, if you look at your phone, these last few weeks of lockdown, when I look at my social media usage, it's a part-time job, and I'm just wasting time. And so it's totally cliche, but it's this idea that the world's greatest entrepreneurs, or the people who are the best in their field, whether that's at making money or being charitable or being philanthropic, they've got the same amount of time as we have. And it's through that reading of those books that you realize the big life, the big one, is possible for anybody. Nobody is particularly talented or special, and there are ways that you can change your life. And for me, it's very much about trying to fit it all in, and understanding that each are equally important. And it's okay some weekends to say, I'm closing the laptop and it's not going back on, and that's all right. I don't feel like anybody should work 24/7. It's so time blocks of 12-week year. So I read all of the mindset stuff that was, you can have the big life, and then I'm reading the practical books, like you say, how the hell do you make that happen? And that's things like the 12-week year, no excuses, the compound effect, the idea that you just have to make sacrifices. But really, what are you sacrificing? You're sacrificing through 300 feet of crap on social media, or some documentary or Netflix channel that you're not that bothered about anyway.
But I think that so I watched a video on YouTube. Funny enough, this is going to sound a bit silly. I watched a video on YouTube about how you shouldn't watch YouTube. But they do so much to try and drag you in, and I had a thought in my head, you obviously a lot of people have aspirations to be at the top, and I thought, do you reckon Elon Musk just sits there scrolling through Instagram or Facebook? And I think, no, they are working hard, obviously, to do. There's obviously different levels. I can imagine people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they have very little time to their own, unless it's very sort of forced. But I mean, reading books is one of the best things that I've really sort of got into, because it opens up your mind, it gives you ways to do things. I've got, I reckon, probably 200 books here that if I ever feel a certain way or need a bit of information, I mean, these are all business books here, and they're there just to greatly your knowledge in whatever way that may be. Do you have 5 books that you could recommend?
I've probably mentioned most of them. So Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. It literally sent me on a completely different trajectory. I think because I've always had a poor money mindset, earn it, spend it, earn it, spend it, earn it, spend it. The Richest Man in Babylon just was incredible for me.
It's an interesting read, isn't it? Because it's like a story.
But the message is repeated, which is good. And then of course there's Paul Million's favourite, which is the Midas method, which is, again, brilliant. The idea that a perfectly ordinary person, through taking some very practical steps, writing your goals down, focusing on what you want in life, just repeatedly do that and your life will change. So that's incredible. I think the compound effect has been brilliant.
That's another very practical one, isn't it? And it's about just being completely consistent and working on small incremental steps to get yourself where you want to be.
I'm a boil the ocean kind of person. So if I take anything up, I want to be brilliant at it within 24 hours. And if I'm not, I give up. And that's a big change for me. So the idea of doing a little bit at a time and waiting for the results to come, and that compound effect. So there are some that have been recommended to me that I haven't read yet. So David Goggins comes up a lot.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you know what? David Goggins made me run my first marathon. I listened to his audiobook, and he was talking about how he was massively overweight, and he wanted to do some amazing charity event. Linked him with a lone survivor, I think, at the film, and he had to run 100 miles to get into the actual ultramarathon event. So he just said, well, I'm going to go do this 24-hour event, and he just ran for 24 hours, did 100 miles. And I was just like, well, if this guy can do this, surely I can go run a marathon. So 2 days later I ran it and messed up my leg, but I did it.
Yeah, apparently the audio is better. So I like to read a book. I like a physical paper book. Amazon are delivering to me every other day. But apparently for that particular book, the audio is better because of the way the audio is delivered.
The way that they read it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
Oh, amazing. Well, there's been some amazing value here. I think that these things are obviously about getting to know the person, but it's also about your experience, and what you can talk about to help our audience as well, which I think there's been a lot there in terms of the marketing side and how you can use that practically into your company. For anybody who can't be asked or they need a bit of guidance, how do they get in touch with you, or what can you do for companies?
So anyone can ring me at any time. I'm very much about, if anybody asks me a question, I will just answer it, because that's what people have done for me. So if anybody wants to give me a shout, they absolutely can. My email is joanne@attentionmarketinglimited.com.
I'll leave your details in the description.
Thank you. But yeah, absolutely, just give me a call. So I do that quite often. I'll just do a Zoom call with somebody for half an hour for whatever particular marketing issue that they need help with. But I think for me, clarity comes from action. The more you do something, you get better at it. So don't wait until you've got the perfect marketing plan. Don't wait until you've got a social media plan. Just start doing it, and then you'll see what works and what doesn't work, and that's where the clarity comes from. So it's like everything else in life. The sooner you start doing it, the easier it becomes.
Amazing. Well, Jo, thank you so much for coming. I'm sure that listeners are going to love this one. And I wish you all the best in your property career and the marketing business as well.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Johnny.
No problem.
Thank you.